Bienvenue à tous à notre session Pause Café, ici au CDN. Aujourd'hui, on va parler d'un programme qui existe depuis un an, c'est le Canadian Digital Adoption Program. J'aimerais remercier notre invité, Joel Stoddard, d'avoir pris le temps pour discuter avec André et moi de la façon dont le programme peut aider les entreprises locales et les entrepreneurs à transformer leurs activités. Thank you, Joel, for joining us this afternoon to talk about the CDAP program. Could you maybe just start telling us a bit about your experience with working with businesses and give us a brief overview of the Canadian Digital Adoption Program and its objectives?
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I'm happy to talk about the CDAP program. We call it CDAP for short. The CDAP program is a $4 billion federal program that started in 2022 and goes until 2025. And the primary objective is to support small and large businesses to build up their e-commerce infrastructure and improve their digital presence, and just generally be more competitive in an increasingly online and digital commerce kind of world. It was born out of one of several discoveries about businesses during the pandemic was just how unprepared a lot of small businesses were to shift their operations and sales online. And so this program was born, and it's been going now for about 18 months. And we've had about 1,200 applications in Nova Scotia so far. So I don't know if that equals two or three every day over the last year and a half. But yeah, that's generally the idea. It is a non-repayable grant, fully non-repayable. So it's $2,400 that you can access to invest in various different components of your e-commerce presence. And one of the questions, of course, we get a lot is, what's the catch, and do I have to pay? And is there any investment that I have to make? And the answer is, besides your time, no. It is $2,400 non-repayable. You just have to figure out how best to make an investment in your company, and we'll finish up the rest.
Yeah, you know what, Joel, that's sort of interesting because I know, in particular for small business owners that we talk to across the province, hearing the word non-repayable certainly does pique some curiosity. And I'm glad you talked about that in respect to, yeah, there's no catch to this. But I guess one thing that we could sort of explore a bit is, talk to us a little bit about who's eligible to participate. I understand that there may have been some changes or slight changes to the program since it was first launched. Some folks may have already understood what the program was, and maybe there were some changes that were to their benefit. And maybe you could also add in there a little bit of discussion around the variety of sectors or industry group participants that you're seeing applying for the program, and what they're doing with that funding. What are some tangible examples? I know it's a lot,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
off track, I'll sort of remind you.
Yeah, I'll take those one at a time. First of all, good question about eligibility. Um, they have cast quite a wide net around who is eligible for this. There's always, unfortunately, somebody who's excluded, but the main criteria for being eligible for the CDAP micro grant is, number one, you have to be a registered business in Nova Scotia or Canada or whichever province you happen to be in. The main criteria that people want to know about is that you either have to have one part-time or full-time employee for 3 months leading up to your application, or you have to have generated $30,000 in gross revenue over the last year. So to answer, you referenced briefly that there was a change, and the original iteration of this program required that you had an employee. What was quickly discovered is that a lot of great growing businesses don't have an employee yet and were therefore disqualified. So they sort of did away with that criteria and sort of made it an either or. So either you have an employee and or you have generated $30,000 in gross revenue, which opens the door for a lot more businesses than originally. Another couple of criteria is that you do have to be what's called a consumer-facing business. And all that means really is that your business can't be exclusively business to business. So if 100% of your enterprise is selling to other businesses who then resell what you have sold them, then you're not eligible. But if you have a dimension of your business that sells to end users and consumers, then you are a consumer-facing business for the purpose of this program. The only other thing I'll mention on that line is that franchises, brokerages, and large corporate chains are not eligible at this time under the program. So we have unfortunately had to decline some larger franchises, great businesses doing awesome things, but they just aren't eligible right now under this program. So you also asked about sectors. First, I guess first I'll mention that no sector is explicitly excluded from this program. So they haven't, said, well, this sector's not eligible. I can tell you that we do tend to see there are 6 or 7 sectors or industries that we have seen a lot of. I'll try to name them here. Retail, number 1, obviously. Food service, restaurants, cafes. I'll lump them all under food service. We've seen a whole lot of those. Tradespeople, plumbers, contractors, electricians, anyone who might fall under the general trades umbrella. We've seen a lot of applicants under there. Artists, crafters, people doing that kind of thing. We've seen a lot of them. We see some professional services. So, for example, health practitioners who are private, say physiotherapists, lawyers, I guess insurance folks, some folks might fit in under that. Personal services, massage therapists, acupuncturists, hairdressers or hair cutters, people like that. Tourism and tourism related businesses. So a lot of accommodations, a lot of attractions and that sort of thing have fallen in under the program. Those would probably be the main industries and sectors, but I don't want anyone to get the idea that if they're not one of those, that they're not eligible, because we have seen a little bit of everything. Your third question, I think, pertained to what are people doing and what is eligible. And I could spend a lot of time talking about this, but I'll try to summarize it as quickly as I can. Probably 7 or 8 main things that we see people have done under this program. Online booking systems. So for service-based practitioners that I might have mentioned a minute ago, the ability to institute technology that lets clients self-serve and make appointments and all that kind of stuff. Online shopping carts. Obviously, we've seen some of that. New e-commerce sites built from scratch. So if I'm a business and I'm growing, let's say I'm an electrician, I've grown my business and I didn't get around to creating a website yet. We can fund the entire, website from scratch. Software. So lots of industries have, proprietary or off-the-shelf software that pertains to that specific industry to help manage things like inventory or project management software that helps you interface with clients and that kind of stuff. So we will finance that. Some other things, search engine optimization, social media and digital advertising is an eligible expense under our program, and the creation of content that would support those things too. So for instance, we've had people who have not only are doing social media advertising, but are having videographers and content creators build some of the content that they will use to do that work. Cybersecurity, we don't talk a lot about that, and that's probably maybe not one of the main things, but cybersecurity has obviously become an important part of e-commerce, and we're happy to fund some of that. What else? Small plugins and just bells and whistles, I like to call them, that people add into their website. So chatbots, for example, that you might build into a website that helps customers self-serve and get some of the answers they're looking for about your business. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is hardware. So point of sale systems, physical things that you might need to support your e-commerce efforts, scanners, product scanners, that kind of stuff. That's eligible as well. There is a caveat there. We can only fund up to 20% of the grant, so $480, I think it amounts to, for hardware. But as a supporting tool to build your strategy, it can be very useful, and we're happy to invest in that as well. So there are other things, lots of other things that we consider on a case-by-case basis, and the website that we have lists a lot of different things. But I would say 80% of everything we do falls into one of those categories.
Yeah, I think you've painted quite a broad picture there, and I think that's to the advantage of anyone considering using the Canadian Digital Adoption Program. And in particular, in like most of our rural communities, given that there's a lot of operations that are sort of related or semi-related or directly in tourism, restaurants being one, or the food service industry. Do you have like an example you could give us about, you know, a small restaurant operation that applies for CDAP, and they use those funds for what?
Yeah, so I'll just use an example, because we have seen probably a couple of hundred maybe restaurants or food, well, maybe not restaurants, but food service more broadly speaking. So you might get an application, say, for a food service business that has a restaurant. They're taking that $2,400. They're using 800 of it, for example, to build an online ordering system that will allow customers to buy or make their order online. They're using another $600, for example, to have professional photography taken of their different dishes and plates and food service offerings that will be attractive when they're putting it online. They're using another $600 or $700 to maybe do some social media ads to announce that they're now online and fully available to be ordered online. And then maybe they're adding another $300 or $400 towards search engine optimization, so that when people are searching for food or takeout options local to them, that they're coming up tops in the search results. I mean, that's just an example. I mean, there's other things surely that, you know, restaurants or cafes could do, but I think the important thing to underscore there is that clients and applicants can piecemeal the $2,400. It doesn't all have to just be lump summed onto one particular thing. We've had a lot of applicants who have been really strategic and thoughtful about what they're spending their money on, and they're breaking up that $2,400 to get the most value that they can.
Yeah, thanks for really you know, sharing that. That gives a good picture. Adrien, it really speaks to a lot of what we hear out in the street. You know, people are looking for bits and pieces of what they could do.
100%. I think one thing that people might be interested in knowing is, like, in terms of maybe like time commitment and like engagement with the program, what's that like? And also, is there any assistance going through this program? How are you guys there to help them?
So there's a very good question. We've heard a lot of great feedback about the process and the timeline and all that sort of stuff. Very quickly, I'll just sort of brush through the steps. Number one is that somebody applies for the CDAP grant. So it takes about 20 or 25 minutes or so for them to fill out an online application, who they are, just to make sure they're eligible for the grant. So once they're approved for that, they set up a short meeting with one of our e-commerce advisors. So they have a 30-minute or 45-minute meeting with an e-commerce advisor to do a couple of things. They can either tell the e-commerce advisor, this is what I want to do and I already have a plan, or if they know they're eligible and they don't really know what they want to do, the e-commerce advisor can offer them some guidance and support to sort of help them decide, here are some of the things that you could do. Most of the clients that we see through the application process, they already know what they want to do. They just kind of want to, you know, let somebody know what that is. So once they have that meeting with an e-commerce advisor, which is usually within 48 hours of applying, what we ask them to do is just briefly put it in writing. So there's a one-page form that they have to fill out that says, here's how I want to spend my $2,400 as per my discussion with the e-commerce advisor. We get that, we approve that, we get them to sign an agreement that says, this is what you said you would do. You have, 3 to 4 months to go ahead and get this work done. and then they're off to the races. They can go out, they can get the work done, and that's entirely up to them. We don't micromanage that part of it. And then when they're done and they've paid their suppliers or vendors, they submit their receipts to us just the same way that somebody would submit a receipt to Blue Cross or another insurer showing that it's been paid, and then we reimburse them at the end, and then they go home, they get their direct deposit of their money, and the rest is history. So we like to say through this program that we're as available as somebody wants us to be. We've had some people through this program who want a lot of support and who want a lot of advice and who want, you know, they're just not technologically savvy people by their own admission, and they want a lot of support. We have other people who perfectly know well what they want to do, and really they just want to go through the process as quickly and efficiently as possible, and we're happy to have that happen as well. We just want them to know that the support is here if they need it. In terms of the time, because we get asked this fairly often, what's the turnaround time between application and full approval? And usually we'll work at the client's speed, but in most cases, I would say it's less than a week between the time you apply and the time you're off doing your project. So it's really not a lot of time. It's, no, it can be longer than that. Some people, you know, are busy. Entrepreneurs are very busy, so it can take a while. But the holdup is usually not on our end.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. And it sounds like the turnaround process it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
One thing that sort of is of interest quite often too is, you know, are there any suggestions or feedback that you received from participants, suggestions about things that, you know, don't do this, do this, you know, to make the process a lot easier and quicker?
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation, I mean, occasionally we get asked to fund things that we cannot fund. I mean, that just, you know, every now and then somebody wants to fund business cards or, you know, signage or various useful things for a business that we're just not able to fund. So the advice we usually give is just do try to read through the list of eligible and ineligible expenses first. That speeds up the process. But usually it's quite seamless. Like, and I tell this to every business because I do get some emails from businesses that are on the fence about whether they should apply or not because they're not sure if they'll get it. And I would say in 98% of instances, we can always find something. I would be surprised if there was a business that couldn't find something on our list that would help their business. I can only think of maybe one or two out of 1,200 that have walked away for not being able to find something they wanted to do. And I think even one of those came back to us later and said that they had found something. So, you know, I guess the other thing we get fairly often is we do get asked sometimes, are you sure this is legitimate? And are you sure there's no catches? People are awfully suspicious in 2023 when they hear about $2,400 of free money that they can get. And my answer to that is no. There are no catches. This is exactly what it says that it is, which is $2,400 in non-repayable grant money to invest in e-commerce. And, you know, you're welcome to put money with this to, you know, because sometimes it does happen that the things that businesses want to do are not fully covered by $2,400. I mean, there's a lot you can do in e-commerce and it can be pretty costly. So yeah, you can invest your own money, but you're not obligated to. And other than that, we usually just get a lot of positive feedback about how fast the process goes. And I guess whatever negative feedback people may have, sometimes they tell their friends instead of telling us, but I don't know. Overall, it's been a good experience so far.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the chat, Joel. It's been very enlightening. I think a lot of good information shared. Merci beaucoup pour ta participation avec nous. Et pour ceux qui s'intéressent au programme, so for those who are interested in finding out more about the Canadian adoption, the Canadian Digital Adoption Program, you know, feel free to contact any of us. So either Adrien, Joel, or myself. reach out and we'll get the information that you need to have in hand.
Thank you. And one last final thing I'll mention is just, and I'm sure this goes without saying in most cases, but a service for this program is available in all provinces in all official languages. So, so if somebody needs support in various languages, we are set up to support that. And again, I guess most people assume that anyway, but I just thought I would add that in there because from time to time the need does come up for that. So thank you. Thanks for having me. And anybody can contact me at any time. Happy to talk, happy to answer any questions they might have, and just kind of happy to be a human being on the other end of a program that people can get quick answers to their questions. So thank you very much.